Now, you were mentioning about an orphanage.
Well, we actually visited two. One orphanage was up the mountain, right straight up the mountain from where we were. There were 23 children in that one. It was run by an older gentleman named Nisa, who our first team that came in um, went to that orphanage quite by chance simply to treat him. He had active um, I can't think, shingles. And they were all over the side of his face and in his eye, and he'd been sick for a long time, and he was terribly dehydrated from vomiting, and he was the caretaker of these 23 kids. And so they went up and they put an IV in him and they gave him medicine and treated him and so on. So we went up and checked on him, and in doing so we met a little grandma who he had plucked out off the side of the mountain after the earthquake, whose house fell down and didn't have anything, who was in her 90s. She has kyphosis from an accident, which means she's been almost completely in half, which caused her to fall and break her arm. That's why we were seeing her.
Mm-hmm.
And she had no shoes. She had pieces of leather wrapped around her feet. So before we left, she now has a pair of Nike Shox. She probably has the only pair of $140 Nike Shox in Haiti, but that's okay because she has my shoes.
You gave her your shoes.
I gave her my shoes. I have a brand new pair of Nikes now. But I never intended to bring those shoes home anyway. So that was one person that I could give those shoes to that I knew was going to make a difference. And Nisa feeds her and takes care of her along with the orphans. And the orphans all go in and sit next to her and they entertain her. And those children, although they don't have the best of things, they were all fed. And they were basically well and fairly well adjusted. There were some that were a little withdrawn. They were found by Nisa on the streets after the earthquake with no one. Little Noah, they found him in a pile of rubble, unconscious, and Nisa took him back to the orphanage. We met some people that were adopting children out of that orphanage and heard about their trials and tribulations of trying to get those children out of Haiti. Their adoption was started previous to the earthquake.
Mm-hmm.
And then we visited a second orphanage that was more to the downtown area that had 99 children in it. And we walked through a broken down rubble building, and our translators told us that the smell we could smell were the 60 babies that were crushed in the building that we were walking beside. That was just nothing but rubble. We walked down into the bottom of a hill, kind of into a muddy area, and there were children everywhere. And those children were hungry and dirty and not all well and not easily kept. But you can't blame the people who house them because they have nothing, and the government really doesn't help them. From what we could see, they probably had adequate facilities to take care of probably 20 children, and there were 99 there. But at least they weren't on the street and being run over by buses and so on.
You said some of them weren't well. What was wrong with them?
Well, we had no diagnostic equipment, so you just kind of reasonable guess. You decide what you think, and I picked a baby up out of a crib that was very, very ill, had a high fever, and we medicated him for the fever, and he sounded terrible when he breathed. He also had open skin lesions, which I have no idea. It could have been from the earthquake, could have been from just the conditions. I have no idea. He wasn't able to hold his head up. And so we medicated him for pneumonia, but we used a broad spectrum antibiotic that would also help cover the skin lesions. Got some nutrition into him, and by the time we left, he was sitting up looking around. Treated him for ringworm and scabies and worms and all the other multitude of ills that we see in most of the Haitian children because of their housing and their poor nutrition.
Do you think of that little boy? Was it a boy?
John Lewis. Every day.
What do you think about?
That he probably isn't still alive. That I could only make a difference while I was there. some. And I hope they gave him his medicine, and I hope he continued to get stronger.
When you say you hope they gave him his medicine,
We saw bottles of medicine that was left from the previous group that visited that same orphanage laying on the ground in a pile. And I don't know that they understand. And I am fairly confident in my translators. So I'm not sure. I just don't know.